Okay, I'm in DuPont, and well, let me give you a location where I'm at. That's City Hall. You got City Hall, you got the fire department, you got the police department, all there in the same area. And what you have here is the site of the old Fort Nisqually. This was the original settlement here in DuPont by Europeans. I don't know if you can see them. You can see crosses over there. There's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, I think I can see, of they're not people that were at the fort, evidently. And they were people, when they built this area here, this is a brand new area for DuPont. I say brand new, built since what, 2002, something like that. This is called Northwest Landing. The original DuPont is over that area that was built for the workers at the gunpowder factory. And the name DuPont obviously is the same as what was he, a magnate, you call him, the big rich guy, DuPont Chemicals or whatever he did. But he had a gunpowder factory right here in DuPont. And evidently Europeans were buried on this side and Native Americans were buried on the other side, and they have crosses on them too. That was requested by the local tribes. Okay, this is where Fort Nisqually was. And Fort Nisqually was built by the British. So we got a British connection here. I don't know if you remember, I'm British, I'm from England. But this is the Hudson Bay Company. Actually, I think it's a Canadian company now. I think they run a department store up in Canada. But they were here living amongst the natives, the different tribes, the Stellicoms and Nisquallies and the Puyallups, and evidently they depended on the tribes for their subsistence. And if you go in here, you can still see the footings from the fort that used to be here. I think it's a great tragedy that they moved it, but that's my opinion because I've adopted DuPont as my home. They did move a couple of the original buildings from this site to a recreation of Fort Nisqually that's in Point Defiance Park. And if you look at a couple of the videos I've done in Point Defiance, you'll see that fort. So this is the site of Fort Nisqually. Just to remind you, this is a restricted area, so they don't want people tramping all over it. And here we go, pretty much reaffirming what I just talked about as a rendition of what it looked like. Like I say, you can go to Point Defiance. The Hudson Bay was a British fur trading enterprise. So they probably killed all the furry creatures, beavers, mink, everything around here. And then Old Town DuPont. Old Town DuPont grew, like I say, around the gunpowder factory. Some interesting things in there, and we call it historical DuPont, excuse me. But one of the last people here, if not the last, was a guy called Tommy. And you probably, Dr. Tommy. Agent in charge. I was trying to figure out what his name, but Tommy was he was actually originally from Scotland. And I guess he was Canadian. And what happened was, I believe it was called the Oregon Treaty, was signed between Great Britain and the United States to establish the existing border now between the United States and Canada. And then the United States, I believe, bought this property. So the Hudson Bay moved out And Tommy was the last agent in charge as far as what I've learnt. And he moved back to Canada as far as I know. But Tommy is a popular name around here. We got Tommy Peak and we got Tommy State Park. So a lot of Tommy remembrances around. So we got a historical museum, a DuPont Historical Museum, of course, and they do tours of this. And I did the tour, that's why I know a little bit about it. Obviously, I'm not a great student, but it was an interesting story. Evidently, there's over there's fruit trees that the occupants of Fort Nisqually had planted, and they're protected under the law to stop people from destroying them, I guess. We got the Sequalitchew Creek, and this was the main water source. So one of the questions I asked the historian doing the guide I was with, this was the main source of water for the fort. And you can see it's only like a trickle, but evidently at one time it was a lot fuller. They've dammed it and diverted it and what have you. So what I'm doing now, I'm heading back to the city hall, and I'm going to walk down. You can see, look, there's hardly any water in this Sequalitchew Creek. Going back to City Hall, then I'm going to walk down the Sequalitchew Creek Trail. I believe its official name is. Beginnings of Europeans in this settlement, to Americans coming in. It was when the settlers started pouring in and taking up all the land that conflicts began with the natives. And also we had a contingency of buffalo soldiers here. Let's say that's DuPont City Hall. I think DuPont is about, 30,000 people. And we've got the fire department over there and the police department. We're in Washington, close to the Puget Sound. Had a little different eras. Start with this Sequalitchew, Hudson Bay, the DuPont Company, and Weyerhaeuser. The Canyon train. We'll talk about the train, and we'll go and see the train. Some of the vegetation, and there's a map of the creek. Okay, I'm guessing probably at City Hall there's a map that has these points of interest on it, and the first one is number 2. I don't know what number 1 was. Is the Flume Dam. And I've done a tour of this too one time. I'm pretty sure they're talking about that structure over here, although it looks more like a sluice gate than a dam. But like I say, the main source of water for Fort Nisqually was pretty much dammed and diverted. Got park rules, make sure you follow park rules. Keep my 6 foot. So like I say, they had a contingent of buffalo soldiers. Anybody who don't know what a buffalo soldier is, they're African Americans. And because of their hair and dark skin, the Indians nicknamed them buffaloes. And I think the term stuck with a sense of pride that they're a buffalo soldier. So that was pretty cool. Of course, in 1917, they established Fort Lewis, or Camp Lewis it was at the time. And the local Indian tribe around here was the Nisqually tribe. Nisqually. Nisqually, I believe it is. And their reservation is over off Mounts Road. And they have a big casino over there, of course, called the Red Winds. Red Winds, I believe it's called. And I don't particularly use it, but I guess it's good for the tribe in generating income. I guess a lot of these reservations were hurting before they allowed them to start doing the gambling. What I'm looking for now is a marker. If I can find it. There it is. I found it. Here it is. It was not got graffiti all over it. Unfortunately, we got our fair share of thugs in DuPont. And this is the site of the Methodist Escopal Mission, established in 1841. This place, the first 4th of July celebration west of the Mississippi was held. How about that? By Captain Charles Wilkes. A little bit of a thing. Now there's another Wilkes that's was a surveyor, I guess, and he has an observation point up on the bluffs over near the tree tunnel. And if you look at my last video of DuPont, you'll see that marker. So there you go. The first 4th of July celebration. West of the Mississippi. Can you imagine that? And why didn't they celebrate 4th of July before then? Because it was a Hudson Bay company and they were British. Had to bring that up, didn't we? See, look at that. What does it say? Environmentally sensitive area. Please stay on the trail. So we're on trail number Alpha, quarter mile in. It's a good idea to remember the trail designator, because if you get in trouble down here, especially if you call that non-emergency number, but I'm sure you'll be calling 911 if you got in trouble. But you want to tell them you're on trail AA. Getting a bit of a stream now. I wonder where the water was when I came under the bridge. The creek's right on my left-hand side here. The trail is hard top just for a short while. It's not very much. I have an idea this is probably to help with their, what do you call that? Erosion. And you can see, and this kind of it's also very sense to me. You can see people are coming down the embankment like this and just taking all the vegetation out. These are not official trails. This is what they're talking about. Stay on the damn trail, because you're tearing it up. Look at all this.
Go 7 miles with weight on your back.
You gonna give me 6 foot?
Yeah.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Okay, half mile in. Okay, you can see now we're back on the gravel, so it's not paved all the way. I'll let you get going first.
What did you say?
I'll let you get going. Enjoy your run. There's point number 4. I missed number 3, did you? But it's a nurse tree, and a nurse tree is where new growth grows out of old growth, and I guess they're saying that the tree stump is the nurse. But if you go to Tomey, talking about Tomey, if you go to Tomey State Park, there's a really, really good example of a nurse tree where the stump has actually rotted away, and they call it a tree on legs. Which, can you imagine the tree growing out the tree stump, and the roots grow around the tree stump down into the ground, and as the stump rots, then it just leaves a tree there on legs. It's again, that's, if you look at my video, Tomey State Park, I think I point that out. So going back to Fort Nisqually, the Historical Museum, or the museum, DuPont Museum, they put on a tour of that site. Here we go, we got another nurse tree. They put on a tour of that site, and it's really interesting. The gentleman that does it is very knowledgeable and doesn't ramble on too much like a lot of historians tend to do. But he kept my interest, so that's good. So the way they transported products, mainly gunpowder, I'm assuming, back in the day, was they built a train track along these lines here, along the creek, and you'll see remnants of it down at the bottom. And the actual train is set up near the museum, which we'll go and see. Okay, 3/4 mile. Yeah, benches along the trail so you can rest and recuperate. 6 foot. I guess when you're told to go toe to heel for your whole bloody career, it's hard to give somebody 6 foot distance. Okay, we got a mile in. If you haven't figured out yet, they want you to stay on the trail. Hey! What are you doing? Okay. You know, it's not very nice to call somebody a wanker across the valley. Yeah, right, I believe it. Enjoy your walk. A couple of rowdy occupants. I think there should be 1.25 miles. And I believe the trail's about 1.5 miles. Okay. They were doing the loop, and if you look at all trails, you'll see the Sequalitchew, they call it the Sequalitchew Loop Trail. I've done the video, I've done that, and I've done a video of it, but I didn't call it that. I call it the tree tunnel, and the Sequalitchew Trail. I'm not sure if All Trails made that or one of their subscribers. But you walk across the creek here, and there's where they're going, all the way up to the golf course. And you get up to the golf course, and you hang a right. And then you go through a hole in the fence, and you're on the tree tunnel trail. And right there, there's a what do you call those, marker? Historical marker. to James Wilkes, who the Wilkes was at the Methodist marker, right? So I'm guessing they might be related. Probably look that up. It seems awfully coincidence that in the early days, two guys called Wilkes that wouldn't be related. I'm sure they were related. And then you can walk along the tree tunnel, and it pops out at Ridge View, which is at the bottom of McNeil in the Northwest Landing part of DuPont. And then you can walk back, if you walk along the trail behind the Pioneer Middle School, get you back up to Center Drive, and then back into the parking lot at the City Hall, where I'm assuming that you park your vehicle. So anyway, here, talk a little bit about the Sequalitchew. And they were a band of the Nisqually tribe, a friendly people. Chief Lahalet. Yeah. The most popular chief name I've seen around here is a guy called Chief Leachy. There's a park in. I'm surprised that's. Oh, look at that! There's a sketch of what it was like. You can imagine this was pretty isolated, wasn't it? And you can see where this has been broken and scratched up, and just, I'm telling you, it's just so sad that we can't have nice things in this town. And some of the wildlife you can see here, you see bald eagle. You see bald eagles around here all the time, almost like sparrows. You see the heron, pileated woodpecker I've seen on this trail. I've not seen any owls yet. I've had the chickabee nest in my nesting box in my front yard. You'll see a ton of deer all over, like rabbits and crows, obviously. And what we got here? A bunch of sawmills. They're pretty much the logging industry, which, you know, you can't blame them. They got to make money. Pretty much devastated area. Here's a little bit of a wetland. They obviously want you to stay out of this. Almost like somebody came down and mowed it. It looks fairly neat. And here we are, we're going to look at the wharf. And what happened here is they brought the products down. There's the dynamite train that came down from the gunpowder factory down to the wharf here. And the ships on the Puget Sound would pick up the products, as we call them, and transport them to where they had to go. And 1.5 miles, so it's a little over 1.5 miles, so a 3-mile round trip. Somebody lost their scarf. Okay, you can see a small structure right out. This is a Puget Sound, by the way. Small structure right out there. And the great people of DuPont call it the shipwreck. I don't know why they call it the shipwreck. What it was during, I'm guessing during the war, where wood and metal was conserved for the war effort. They built some boats out of concrete. I don't think it caught on, because you don't see too many today, concrete boats. And this one looks like it's been abandoned out there. It's on the end of a little pier. I think you can see a post marking it there. I was walking up on the bluffs last week, and the tide was low, and you could see the pier going out to the boat. That's the first time I see. I've been here for 4 years. The remnants of the wharf, where the wharf was, where they come in and load the ships. So the shipwreck, I forgot to tell you this. There's a walk you can do. I'm guessing at low tide you might be able to walk along the beach over to it. I've not done it yet. I'll have to do it one of these days. But you got to check the tides table. Make sure the tide is going out close to low tide. You don't want it coming in. So the tide tables are all published. You just got to Google it. I would Google try first tide tables in DuPont. If not, try Stelicom. It's got to be pretty close to the same. So as part of that, it was a narrow gauge. Narrow gauge means the wheels are a lot more narrow, smaller than the conventional train. Up not far from the State Farm, a little bit further over towards the 76 station, you can see a gap where that train evidently used to come out. Amazes me that the train tracks continue on. I guess the end of the line was probably into the onto a pier over the water. And normally you can see the snow-capped mountains of the Olympic Mountains, but not today because it's a little bit cloudy today. Right across the water there I can see a ferry. Try and get my bearings. Yeah, Seattle will be this way. Check it out, got the beach to myself today. It's not unusual to see sea lions or seals. I still get mistaken what's the difference between a harbor seal and a sea lion. I've never seen an orca, but it's not unusual to have orcas. That's part of the sound. We got what they call the southern red. So this, some people call it the beach. Officially, I think it's called the wharf. Oh, excuse me. Absolutely beautiful. No trains. Yeah, we're very, very fortunate in DuPont to have this area. We got a train. Knew we couldn't leave here without a train. Oh, there's a passenger train. It's an Amtrak. Let's go down the train tracks. So I'm on my way back. Oh, like avalanche lilies. You see those on Mount Rainier. A couple of things about this trail on a weekday. It's beautiful. And number two, it's nice and quiet. All I can hear now is the rambling of the stream and the bit of patter of a runner now and again. I would think if you're running, you probably need to give people a little bit more than 6 feet. And my theory is that you're expelling your saliva, put a nice way, a spit, a lot more as you're huffing and puffing, especially when you're coming up a hill like this. So that might exceed the range of 6 feet. I don't know. Maybe somebody's told about it. But give people a lot of room when you're running. I was walking the other day and this guy come lumbering past me, big, tall, heavy-duty guy, huffing and puffing. And he passed me like 2 feet from me. That's not your social distancing. Let's get with it, DuPont. Let's get with it, runners. Hey. Again, a soldier. Doesn't understand the 6-foot isolation zone. Total heel. Got the azaleas coming out too. Beautiful. That lady with the dog there just kind of hatched onto an idea here that maybe bring your dog down here, let them sniff out all the poop bags and pick them up and dispose of them. Because that's what her dog just did, it sniffed out one. Well, somebody had thrown it under the tree there. So we got them putting the dog poop into the bag. Now all we have to do now is get them to put the bag and dispose it properly instead of just leaving it on the trail and the trash. Okay, we're back up to City Hall, and like the sign said, we do a little over 3 miles. And I walked across the road to check out the Fort Nisqually site. Back in the parking lot. One thing you got to remember on this trail is that apart from the wooded area, there's no bathroom facilities. There used to be a honey pot at the top here, but it looks like they took that in. There was one in the City Hall, but I think they keep that locked now. So just remember that. Okay, here's the museum. So when it's open, what I recommend is come here and get some information, have a look around the museum, and when they offer the tours, do one of the tours. Also, they do a tour of this is historical DuPont, and if you see these 3 houses, that's kind of very similar. Well, probably all these houses were all similar at one time. What these were, when DuPont set up the company, they needed housing for their employees. So they brought these kits in, and you can drive around historical DuPont, and this one's a great example of one. They've all been modified and added on over the years. We're talking about 1910, I think it was, when they installed these. And you know, it's ironic, one of these houses is for sale, and they want $339,000 for it. And they're only like 1,000 square feet. And here's the actual train, getting a little rusty. I think somebody needs to do a little body work on it, I guess. I wonder if they can get some volunteers to work on that. Got the cars. And this is what they call the dynamite, the DuPont dynamite train. Again, they gotta keep the thugs off it. And information about it. And here's the train route. Okay, here's a wharf. Here's a wharf, that's where we were just at. So the train didn't actually follow the creek. Here's the creek. Here's the creek, and here's the train. But that's, so you can come here and you can see the train tracks. Operated for 70 years. It looks like the powder works was pretty much scattered all over different little units. So anyway, a little bit of DuPont history there for you. Hope you enjoyed it. Because I believe this house here was the big guy's house, the boss's house. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure I'm right.